Hello and welcome to Behind the Lines. I'm Diane Dayton. Today we're going to talk about ideas to help eliminate racism and systemic poverty. We're going to talk about social entrepreneurship and how to raise millionaires. Have you curious? Well, we're going to find out more from Dwight Smith. And Dwight, you are the founder of Stewardship Small Business Services, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you are a small business educator.
Yes.
But you are an entrepreneur in and of yourself, and you have quite a story as well. In fact, before you got into finance, you also had a business. Tell us about that.
It started actually when I was a senior in high school. Started a landscape contracting firm in nursery, and then just was doing small jobs for people. I was fortunate enough to work for somebody in high school that really enjoyed plants and was willing to teach me a lot, and I was fascinated by that. And so I went to college for landscape design and started my own business and did that for 12 years with my own business and 2 or 3 years for somebody else designing.
And then what happened? Because you did a big change.
I did. I sold everything. I was fortunate. All my equipment was paid for. So I sold all of my equipment in the span of about 6 months and decided I was going to go into financial services and went into selling mortgages.
What triggered that?
What triggered it was a friend of mine who had not recalled that over the years he would mention to me when I would complain about something within my business and frustrations, he'd say, "Hey Dwight, you should sell mortgages. It's not that hard and you can make a lot of money." And I used to tell him, I said, "John, I make fun of people that wear ties." And so I sold everything, called him up and said, "Hey John, I'm going to move to central Pennsylvania and I would like you to teach me the mortgage business." And his response was, "Whatever gave you that idea?" I said, "Well, you did. You told me you'd do this." And he said, "I was kidding." I said, "Well," I said, "John, here's the thing. You know, we were best friends from high school." I said, "Either you can teach me the business and I'll work for you and you can make money off me, or I'm going to find out who your competitor is, your largest competitor. I'm going to go work for them and I'm going to sell against you." And I'll filter what he said, but he basically said, "You'll really do this?" And I said, "Yes, I will." And so we decided, given his wife is the voice of reason, we would sit down and talk with her. She thought it could work out, and that's how I got into financial services. And I worked for John for, I guess, 2 or 3 years.
Okay. So then what you did after that, tell me how this started with Stewardship Small Business.
Sure. So eventually in the financial services, I went from the mortgage business to working for a bank where I also sold investments, and then became a registered investment advisor doing financial planning and in-depth things. And I kept liking knowing how the numbers were connected. And eventually I realized that you could connect numbers to somebody's behavior, okay? And the choices that they made within their life affected all these other numbers in their life. And then eventually this led to being living in Southwest Florida, and my wife at the time and I had an accounting firm. And working in that accounting business is where I really realized that if you understand the flow of numbers within a business, you can understand any business. And so I became very interested in cost accounting, and that's what sparked the interest with then wanting to write our own business plan, because we wanted to expand the business, and I had never written a business plan. So, okay, I'll take this course in business planning. So I took this course in business planning, found it incredibly valuable, and thought, oh my gosh, every business owner should have one of these plans. But almost nobody writes them. And I understand why. There's a lot of moving parts. It's complicated, and frankly, if you don't have an accounting background, it's difficult to understand how to pull all these numbers and details together. But that's what sparked the initial interest in, well, hey, there's got to be some kind of course out there that we could recommend to our clients. And I searched and couldn't find anything that was comprehensive. And frankly, there was a lot of segments in these courses out there that were just wrong. They didn't have correct data in them, and their examples weren't accurate, and they hadn't done the research that they should have, in my opinion. So I never realized that putting together these types of courses took years. So now, 7, 8 years later, I have now written several courses and produced them, and they're available through the business that we have.
Yeah. So then what you did with that, this whole idea of raising millionaires is near and dear to your heart.
Very much so.
So how did that start?
So I've got a little girl who's about to turn 4, And one of the times when she was probably only 2 months old at the time that this situation occurred, that I was holding her, I got up in the night and fed her, and I'm holding her, and I just get this overwhelming feeling that I need to do something to ensure that she's financially okay. Because you got to realize at the time, I was 51 years old when this child was born. Certainly not an early child rearing time.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm realizing that I may not be there as she's well into adulthood, so I need to do something to ensure her financial security. And I thought, well, what's a good way to do that? And I knew enough from the financial planning that it really boils down to setting aside small amounts of money systematically and investing it in the right way. I thought, well, how can I do that for my daughter, Kinley? And I thought, well, we could start a business together. And I always kind of felt that all my education with plants and everything, that I just kind of felt that that wasn't going to go to waste, but I didn't know how it was going to come back into the loop. I thought, well, who wouldn't buy flowers from a cute little girl? So let's learn how to eat. Let's select some cut flowers.
Right.
Let's grow cut flowers. Let's wrap a little business around this. And so I ran the numbers with a very small business plan and realized that we really didn't have to have a very big business at all to take from the time that she was 6 to 18, so just the time that she was in grade school, middle school, high school, that we could set enough money aside that she would literally end up having well into the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, by the time she retired, just by doing some basic things and getting time on her side. So that's what prompted the idea for the book, because once I ran the numbers for myself, I was like, anybody can do this. But almost nobody knows how simple it actually is.
Right.
So that led to the bright idea to write a book for it, which again, another time-consuming thing, but it's really fun, and it gives some wonderful daddy-daughter time and looking at flowers.
And that's really what you're setting this up to do with parents and with their children.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, the premise of the book is to show how an adult can partner with a child that they love, because most of us are not in a position that we can just simply set up trust funds for all of our kids and all of our grandkids so that they'll be financially secure. But I've known families that are in that position, so I saw the benefits of that.
Right.
And I thought, well, okay, if you don't have that pile of money, how can you still end up in that place with that financial security? And that's why we worked out this process of, okay, how do you show a little child how to start their own business? You know, the traditional thing people think of as the lemonade stand or something like that. Well, if you run the numbers on it, you can actually do it with a lemonade stand and a small child. You know, and there's so many advantages for a small, excuse me, for a small child, and that it's easier for them to get business often than an adult to get business.
Yeah, and that whole process of figuring out what that business is really exciting too, isn't it?
I think it is, because in my mind, regardless of age, everyone, and I do mean everyone, has a skill, talent, or area of interest. And you can take that skill, talent, or area of interest and show them how to create a small business around it. And with all the entrepreneurs I've helped, whether it was doing volunteer courses, teaching business planning and entrepreneurship, or with our clients, that they can use that. And I said, because everybody would say, well, this is a hobby. I don't think I can turn it into money. I said, well, you know what? There's somebody doing it right now. But people think that because they love it, it can't be their financial livelihood. I'm like, no, it should be your financial livelihood. Right. And so we showed how even a child can write a basic 3-page business plan to show how to make it work.
Boy, and setting a child up and getting them thinking this way really sets them up for a life of potential success.
It does. It teaches them all the habits of successful entrepreneurs. You know, when I was a child, if we wanted extra money, and I'd go ask my parents, they're like, well, you can weed the garden, or you can go do this, or you can do, it was always, you had to do a chore to do it. And then if we had done those chores and still wanted some more money, then we were, well, go ask the neighbor.
Right.
Go see if you can do the same thing for them.
Right.
So it wasn't just handing the money, and it creates this very direct correlation to, I need to do something to get something back, and teaches them the habits of self-reliance.
Right. So if we want to find out about you, what you do, also Raising Millionaires, more information, where do we go?
We've got a website that's ssba.com, Stewardship Small Business Academy. And there's the courses available there. People can learn more about it. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and all the normal social media places.
So do a Google search and we'll find it.
Yes, yes.
All right. Well, we're going to take a brief pause. When we come back, we're going to find out more about Raising Millionaires. You don't want to miss this. Stay with us.
LCTV 66 is your community channel, and your donations keep us on the air and help to produce more local programs. Send your tax-deductible donation of $500, $100, or more to the address on the screen. Or think of it this way: for the price of a couple of movie tickets, you can help support your community channel. Send what you can and be a part of all that is good about Lancaster County. Thank you for your tax-deductible donation to LCTV 66, Lancaster's Connection.
We're back behind the lines. We're with Dwight Smith. We're talking about raising millionaires, from toddlers to tycoons, we may add, right?
Yes.
So we were talking about how this book started and how you wanted to work, with your daughter in a business so that she could get set up to be financially secure.
Yeah.
And some of the things that we were talking about earlier when we first opened this up was how to eliminate systemic poverty
Yes.
and racism.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about how this would work.
Sure.
Well, what research? Because you've done research.
Yes. Well, I ended up volunteering for an organization called SCORE, which is a national nonprofit that helps folks start and grow businesses. And we were one of the most active chapters in the nation for education, and myself and another gentleman, Leroy Moore, were heading up that education. And so it gave us a lot of exposure to people and, frankly, the limitations of a lot of the programs and how a lot of times people, even though we could provide them the educational content, it didn't eliminate the barriers that they had to being launched into business and being able to become financially successful with that. So what Leroy and I would do is after every class we'd sit down and say, okay, how did we just help this group of people, and what's the next barrier they're about to run into, and can we do anything about that barrier? And it led to us analyzing everything that's necessary for somebody to get into business. And we realized that, well, one of the areas that we were doing this, there was a economically depressed area in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania called Allison Hill. And I used to live in Harrisburg. It's about 20 years ago by now. And we're passing out flyers, spreading the word that we're doing these courses. And I'm walking around, I'm going, oh my gosh, this looks worse than when I lived here. I'm thinking there's all these nonprofits, there's all these programs, there's all these organizations that are throwing various solutions, and their hearts are often in the right place, but I'm like, how can all these resources be going here? And it's going backwards. And I just kept thinking, you know what, if folks knew how to plan and launch their own businesses, and that they could change their economic circumstance, not rely on other people to change their economic circumstance, it could change. And anymore, it used to be, like I said before, I mean, I'm in my mid-50s now. When I was a child, these cities were thriving, and people could buy almost anything they needed within walking distance. That is not the case anymore. So money can't even stay in the community. So I thought, well, okay, the way to eliminate all of this poverty and the pain associated with the poverty, because there's a lot of horrible things that stem from poverty. Well, it's got to be through rapid, wide-scale economic endeavors, specifically entrepreneurship. So how do we do that? And well, we've got to make the information accessible. We've got to make startup capital accessible. We've got to make it to where criminal history is irrelevant. We've got to make it to where bad credit is irrelevant. And all these barriers that are there, just how do we get those to dissolve? And this is the solution that we've come up with how to do that. And then the other side of it with the racism portion of it, in my opinion, the underlying source of racism is a mental separation of that person's different than me. Now, obviously, with racism, it's usually got to do with skin color or national origin, but it's got nothing to do with actually knowing that person. And I thought, well, okay, almost any business owner I know, as soon as they find out that somebody else owns a business, that's the most important connection. And the other differences, the perceived differences, are just irrelevant at that point because, hey, this person's going through the same tough road I'm going through.
Yeah.
Let's talk about if we can help each other.
Yeah.
And so that's what we believe, that if we can create wide-scale entrepreneurship, then have all those identifications with each other and the commonalities that we share, the need for racism is just going to go away. It's not going to be there.
Yeah. You had also done some research about numbers with...
Yes. You want me to talk about that?
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
So one of the statistics I'd come across is that in the last 55 years, the federal government has spent $22 trillion on what they label the war on poverty. Okay? And so it prompted my curiosity of just, well, how many poor people are there? Because what came to my mind was, if you gave me $22 trillion in 50 years, I think I could solve darn near anything. Okay? But I wasn't sure that was the case. So I said, well, how many impoverished people are there? And I'm rounding numbers, so it's roughly 50 million. And so then I added up, well, if everybody was given a house, paid $5,000 in their back bills, paid a year's worth of salary, given money for education, all these different things, it adds up to about $130,000 to $150,000 per person. Well, if you just give them all that money, it only took up about the 22 trillion took up about a third of that money. And I thought, well, there's 2/3 of the pile left over, and by default, everybody's out of poverty because they've just been given the economic resources to take them out of poverty and the means to stay out of poverty. And so, part of what our presentations are going to be is showing a graphic of $22 trillion. Just saying, if you had $22 trillion in 50 years, do you think you could have solved it? But there's not a single city that we can look to. There's not a single one that we can go, wow, they fixed it there. And that they serve as the example. So that reinforces what I was saying before of, unless it's the individual solving it for themselves, it's never going to come from the outside.
Right. And how do you keep the individual engaged and motivated?
It's... So recently, I was listening to an audio book where a gentleman had made the phrase that I won't use. He uses curse words. He's not a fan of motivation, and the reason he's not a fan of motivation is he said that goes by the wayside. You have to be driven internally.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what I believe it's going to boil down to is, if somebody is driven internally by wanting something more or different, they will have the tenacity to see through all of the challenges that come with having a business. Okay? And so I am a fan of motivation, even though the gentleman that I've got a lot of admiration for is not. I do think it's helpful because it sparks things. Yeah, unless you're internally driven, it won't. So we've got to create a community of all these entrepreneurs, and as people enroll in our courses, we will have a forum there for us to collectively lift each other up, because we are going to run into a lot of difficult, challenging times, and a lot of times you just need somebody there to commiserate with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, what I like, you've done several different editions of this.
Yes.
So, of course, we have the Raising Millionaires here, the piece that I have, and this is specifically for
an adult that wants to partner with a child that they care about, and the child could be anywhere from kindergarten up through into high school.
And then what do we have here? I think you have something with the side hustle?
Yes, we've got another book called the Side Hustle Handbook High School Edition, which is specifically written for high school age young adults that want to start their own business, and so it gives examples of low barrier to entry businesses, and again gives a template for them to do a very abbreviated business plan, but so that they can get in the game regardless of the fact they're still in high school.
And then the really big book down here.
Yes. Yeah, there's also a 400-page textbook.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Well, and the irony is, after I wrote it, I'm like, nobody's going to read this.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
Right.
I'm the only person I've come across that is interested in a 400-page textbook on business planning. But what it does do is show somebody step by step any component of a business plan, how to put it together. But what I've also learned, because I do a lot of consulting where people want me to write their business plan with them or for them, that it serves as a guide to walk them through. But just because of the large scope of writing a business plan, people often need assistance with it. So that's part of what we will be doing as well. We're not just going to say, watch this set of videos and let us know how it worked out.
Well, you're also going out and doing presentations, right?
We will be. That's what we're in the process of doing right now, is creating that whole, what the whole presentation is going to be and what the event's going to be like. And then we will be going city to city. Because one of the statistics I became aware of is that if you add up the population of the 50 largest U.S. cities, it's 80% of the U.S. population. So if we go to a city every other week, in 2 years we can hit all 50 cities.
Okay. And what are you hoping happens?
I hope there's a whole lot of people that went from thinking, I can't do this, to going, I did it with some help. Because I don't know a single business owner, not a single one, that ever said this was easy.
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of them that say it was worth it. So if we can show them that they don't have to do it alone, we'll give you the set of instructions, and we'll give you the resources to help you get there. The one part we can't do is take the initiative on their behalf. So if we combine those two things, we truly believe that there can be countless people that have gone, wow, I made this change in my life, and whatever it is that they wanted more of or different, that they were able to facilitate because they had the economic empowerment necessary to do those things.
And this will make a huge effect on generations to come.
Yes. Yeah, it absolutely can. Because if you think about it, if all this pain that comes along with people not having the economic opportunities that they want, if they had the economic resources, those problems just go away by default. Doesn't mean you don't have any problems. Right. But it's a set that you'd probably rather have.
Yeah. A final thought. What would you like to leave us with?
When it comes to entrepreneurship, that you can get in the game, you can do it. You can. I explain to people all the time, because they look at the enormous. I get calls from people literally like, I'm overwhelmed by this. They might even be well educated. They might have a master's degree. And there's just too much to do. I say, you know what? I promise you, there's nothing in here that's beyond 9th grade math.
Okay.
And if we take it a step at a time, you'll get there.
Yeah.
We just need them to be willing to take that first step, and we'll help them through the rest of the way.
Okay, and your website again is?
It's enrollssba.com for Enroll Stewardship Small Business Academy.com.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much
Thank you, Diane,
for taking time today and giving us these ideas that you've put obviously a lot of heart and a lot of thought into, and a way to really make a difference.
Thanks.
In a positive way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today, too, on Behind the Lines. I'm Diane Dayton. Remember, keep looking behind the lines. You might be surprised what you find.